right. Uh, God used Nebuchadnezzar to besiege Jerusalem and give it into his hand. That happened in 605 BC. He is proleptically, and that means in anticipation, called the king of Babylon. Uh, Daniel apparently used the Babylonian method of counting years, while Jeremiah, and we read that last time, so I'm not going to read it again, Jeremiah used the Jewish method, which counted the year of ascension as the first year of reign. Now you might say, oh, I don't understand that. Well, I'm going to tell you something. There's some people in places like Japan, they count the age of a person beginning approximately with conception. So where I would say this is a newborn baby, 1 week old, they would say this baby is 9 months and 1 week old. See, so do we sometimes say things in a different way in different places in the world? And the answer to that's pretty obvious. Yes, we do. We do that. Okay. Sacred vessels were placed in the house of Nebuchadnezzar's god, and that god is Marduk or Bel, Bel. And I've already told you in the Apocrypha, Bel. There's a book called Bel and the Dragon. I don't believe it's inspired, but it does use that term for that god in the land of Babylon. All right, let's look at any questions so far beyond what we've already heard. All right, let's go to verses 3 and 4. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel, and some of the king's descendants, and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge and quick to understand, who had ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. All right. Nebuchadnezzar directed that certain ones would be taught to serve in the king's palace. Here are the qualifications as they're listed, and we'll try to explain any of them that need explanation. First of all, they had to be young. Okay. This is used of children up to the age of 40. I did not consider myself young at 40, but okay. That's the way they used it. No physical imperfections. Handsome, not homely. So I might not have made it. I don't know. I don't know who would have made it. The ability to make right judgments. I know some good people who you do not want to entrust with your money, not because they would steal it, but because they would invest it poorly. They don't know how to handle it. Okay. Well, the king wanted folks who could make right judgments. Okay. He wanted them to be intelligent. They had to have a certain amount of knowledge. He wanted them to be good learners. You can be intelligent and yet not able to listen to instruction. I can remember some people that I've gotten to teach, not any of you. I'll tell you that quickly. But I've had some students who I thought were very intelligent, but you couldn't teach them anything. They wouldn't listen to anything. They already knew it all. Well, I am 72 years old. Let me make you one promise. I do not know it all. Yeah. In fact, I want you to imagine when I first started preaching, imagine this circle. Everything inside this circle represents everything that I know. Well, then outside the circle is everything that I do not know at that time, that I know I don't know. Okay? So there'd be certain things on the edge of that circle. I go, oh, I don't know that. but I've got sense enough to know I don't know it. Now, as I've gotten older, my circle's bigger. So I know more. But now I know more than I don't know because the outside edge of the circle is bigger, you see? So the more you learn, the less you know. In a sense of the word. That's all I'm saying. So a good learner recognizes I've got things to learn. I've got things I don't know. And I think that may be what's involved here. And then they have to be competent, that is, able to do what is expected of them. Notice that Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael are in that group. They're chosen. Now, what does that tell us about them? Well, it may be, because of what's listed here, it may be that they were part of the royal family. Might Daniel have been a descendant of the king in some sense of the word? Maybe. Was he the son of a nobleman? Well, he's one or the other, because of the way it's written here. Okay, verse 5. And the
Brother
king,
Hampton?
oh, sorry, yes.
Yes, I'm quite interested in what the dynamic between Babylon as the conqueror and Israel as the taken nation might have been. So first thing that comes to mind is, do you think that these men were made eunuchs in Babylon? And number two, do you believe these good qualities of them were planted in Israel, or do you think these might have been under the tutelage of Babylon? What do you think of that?
Okay, first of all, my suspicion is that all of these young men were made eunuchs. That's my suspicion. Notice the word. There's a flag. I just threw a flag up. Could I prove that? No, I can't prove it. But I think it, and I'll show you why as we go through the text. Why I believe that may be true. Second, I believe that they had these qualities when they came into Babylon. Uh, they were they were observable qualities, and you can observe. Whether is this guy. I've had Chip Freeman in class before, and here's what I know about Chip Freeman. Uh, he may not know. In fact, he's just like me. He doesn't know it all. Neither one of us knows it all, but he's hungry to learn. And so if I were choosing people to be in a class, I thought this would be fun to have a class like this. I would choose Chip Freeman. And Mario, after just 2 times with you, I suspect you'd be part of that too. And likely everybody else in the class. Obed has already asked a good question. See, so that's what I'm looking for. If you got sense enough to say, well, I don't know this, can you explain it? That tells me a lot about your nature, a great deal about it. So that's what I think, Mario. I think it's observable. I think they had that when they were brought into the land. By the way, let me tell you a little bit about Babylon. The Assyrians, when they would conquer a land, and I'm going to use the United States as an example. I don't know what you all know about the United States, but uh, Alabama and Mississippi are kind of mirror images. If you drew an outline of Mississippi and flipped it over, you basically would have Alabama. They're almost identical in their shape, almost identical. Okay, so if somebody conquered Mississippi, like Assyria would do it, Assyria would take everybody from Mississippi and they move them over to Alabama because the land is very similar. There's a black belt of soil uh, that goes across both those states, and it's very very good for planting. So you take the people from the black belt of Mississippi and you put them over here in the black belt of Alabama. If you were conquering Mississippi and you were Assyrian, that's the way you would do it. And then they'd take when they conquered Alabama, they'd move those folks over to Mississippi. That's the way they did it. Okay. So Israel is taken out of their own land and they're put somewhere else that's like Israel. And the other people who are used to living in an area like Israel are moved into the land of Israel. Now you may remember what happens. They end up getting eaten by lions, some of them, and they start complaining to the king, and he says, "We've got to get a priest in here who knows about the God that lives here." And they instruct them, and thus you end up with the Samaritan people, a kind of a intermingling breed of people who know about the God of Israel because they had to be taught or they'd have died. No, but Babylon doesn't work that way. Uh, Nebuchadnezzar would go in and he would extract all the brilliant leaders of the land, and he'd take them into captivity. Now the theory was, if you get rid of all the leaders, then the people will be passive. That was the theory. The problem is the Jews were never passive. They just are not a passive people. They refuse to be conquered thoroughly. And so what would end up happening is then they rebel again. And Nebuchadnezzar now rips off the next layer. You know, he takes off the next line of leaders, if you would, and they rebel again. And so finally, Nebuchadnezzar comes in there and just crushes them. He just said, "That's it. I'm tired of that." Just crushes them. Total defeat. That's the way that works. So we're seeing the beginning of that in chapter 1. We're seeing him pull these leaders off. He knows who they are. And he's going to okay. So Mario, you've asked a good question, and hopefully I've given a reasonable answer
You
to
you have
that.